So why aren't Catholics in the fight? They're not. Catholics are not in the fight. Even faithful Catholics hesitate. They'll get ready to draw the sword because instinctually, because they're in a state of grace, and they have the prompting of the Holy Spirit and the grace of the sacrament of confirmation, the graces, the gifts of the sacrament, they know instinctively what they just heard is wrong. They go for the sword and they sheathe it again. Why? Because we're cowards. Because everything is more important than the naked truth. How are we ever going to stand in front of Jesus Christ and say, at our personal judgment, I love you, I want to go to heaven, and I didn't fight for you every chance I got. I didn't care about that soul that came across my path, however confrontational it would have been. I didn't bring the spirit of contradiction to contradict the world. I didn't do it, but let me into heaven anyway. That's going to be quite the conversation, I would imagine. But see, the culture with all that poison it's dumped into the aquarium, we don't see it like that anymore. Now it's mean. Now it's rude. Now if we say something, we hurt somebody's feelings. And that becomes the great mortal sin of the 21st century, to hurt someone's feelings. That's the only thing that we can do that might possibly merit eternal damnation. That's it. If you make someone go, oh, you're awful. But if you're on your way to go help with the abortion, or you're running off with the person you're shacked up with, or you're propagating children all over the place and not being responsible, as in being married, all of these things, well, God understands. God understands you can kill a child in your womb 2, 3, 4 times. And yet He doesn't understand you making someone cry? That seems weird. Seems like God's like a little off there. Any Catholic who is not about the business of evangelization might not ever entertain a serious hope of ever seeing the beatific vision. We don't understand that we are in a war. It's laid out for us on the very first pages of the book of Genesis. It concludes for us on the very last pages of St. John's Apocalypse. And everywhere in between, it's played out. We don't get to check out of that war. We don't get to listen to family members and friends who have already either put down their swords or never picked them up or have no realization of this. We don't get to listen to them. They're wrong. However you need to say it to them, they're wrong. You must say the truth. You must say the truth. No matter what it costs you, you must say the truth. Because the truth ultimately is Jesus Christ. And anybody walking around with the mark of the Holy Trinity on his or her soul does not get to deny it because it's convenient to keep your mouth shut. No matter what the cost, you must open your mouth. That goes for clergy, it goes for laity. How you do it, that depends on the circumstances of whatever you're in. God has given you a mind, He's given you the power of judgment. If you're in a state of grace, you have the Holy Trinity within you. Call on our Blessed Mother beforehand if you're in a situation where you know something's about to come up. Whatever it is, you have the entire court of heaven at your disposal. Call on them. But don't stay silent. Whatever you have to say, figure it out. If it's a brother of yours, a familial brother, sibling, and something needs to be said, figure out the best way to say it. If it's a person that you know at work, figure out a way to say it. All of those individual circumstances, they're up to you in your lives, they're up to me in my life. However we do it, we got to do it. And it's not just conflict, it's looking for opportunities. You go out to a restaurant, does somebody make a comment, your waiter or waitress make a comment because you've just said grace publicly? And they say, oh, what's that? Do you use that as a moment? Forget about your dinner. You're going to be enjoying the wedding feast of the Lamb later. Right now, engage with that soul. This is how the faith was spread. We're sitting here because those 12 men preached and gave their lives for it. They gave their lives for the faith. They gave their lives for the love of our blessed Lord. And that's why we're here. We don't get to stop that motion dead in its tracks because it's inconvenient. Or we're going to pay a price for it. Yeah, we will pay a price for it. Big deal. Lots of people in the church don't like a masculine presentation of the faith. So different places have written up all kinds of nasty little things about me. Most of them untrue, at least in their interpretations. I don't care. I really don't care. I care that it damages the faith because people are engaged in calumny. I care about it on that level. I don't care about it personally. I don't care at all. I could give a rip. They want to burn my house down? Well, I suppose if I get my father out of it, then that'll be okay. You have to be willing to pay everything you've got. That's what the faith is. Because that's what love is. You cannot love what you do not know. And the opposite of that is true too. You can't know what you don't love. And we are called to love. That is the only thing we are called to. And when we love, everything else falls into place. Everything. And if everything isn't falling into place, then that means we don't love enough. The poison in here is cowardice. Nobody who calls themselves a Catholic should be unwilling to die for the faith. There should be, on the level of holiness, a kind of secret desire to die for the faith. Not because you love death, but because it is the ultimate expression of love that we can render to God. We should want to be able to say to God, I love you this much, like He did for us, because it's the nature of love. I want in because I kept the faith to me, because you gave it to me as pure grace. But, I just couldn't take it when they were saying things mean about me. Or it caused all kinds of upset in the household or my friends or whatever. It cost me my job. I mean, come on, Jesus. How unreasonable can you be? You actually wanted me to lose my job? Meanwhile, all of a sudden, behind our blessed Lord at our last judgment, comes this string of martyrs. One after 100, after 1,000, after 10,000. The ones that St. John describes for us in his Apocalypse as having washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. If somehow we're able to, with that miserable track record, able to sneak into heaven, maybe our blessed Lord's over here judging someone else, we run around behind him and squeeze through the bars. We put on our St. Peter outfit and we fool all kinds of people. How embarrassing would it be to be sitting in the room with the 1st and 2nd century martyrs, and they're all sitting there talking about all the things that they went through. And we're sitting there listening to that. And those martyrs are, yeah, boy, I don't have any memory of it now, but I do recall that I really didn't like the idea of that lion's teeth ripping into my liver. It really didn't feel good. I can't feel it now, but it was awful. And then a mother speaks up and says, yeah, and I remember they took all of my children and they put them on torches to light up the Via Appia. And they torched them all, and I saw it. I had to sit there and watch my children all burn to death. And a father sits there and says, yep, I saw the same thing with my sons. What exactly would we contribute to that conversation? Yeah, I know what you mean. My father-in-law said I was mean. The newspapers wrote a mean story about me. It was awful. They called me a name. They said I was a fanatic. So I understand you watching all your children murdered. I feel your pain, because they called me a meanie. How embarrassing would that be? So we don't realize, we don't think, we're not imbued in the faith. We don't eat, drink, and sleep the faith the way the faith has been handed down to us through the ages. Can't even think in terms of soldiering. Call something militant, they think you're going to go blow up a building. But the term church militant is related to the communion of saints. The saints, the church in heaven, is the church triumphant. The church in purgatory, the souls who have died, who are not yet in heaven, but are still saved. Saints are the church purgative, and we are the church militant. So when you say that in Mass, I believe in the communion of saints, that's what you're talking about. We are related here on earth to the saints in heaven and the saints in purgatory. We better be, because we need their prayers. We need their intercessions. This is why Pope Leo said Catholics are born for combat. It's why recently, a year ago April, Pope Benedict said that even though the term has largely fallen out of use, there is no truer way to express the essence of the church on earth other than the term church militant. He said it in Latin. That poor misled soul. That's not just him standing there. That's the forces of the diabolical behind him. So we pick up the sword and we engage in the battle. We don't get to not say something. We got to get this out of our heads. Else your 2% will become 1%. And your 1% will drift into the morning mist and be gone. And all the churches will be museums. We don't get to not engage in the battle. We don't. You don't get to remain silent. You don't get to remain silent and walk up to Jesus and say, let me in there. We just have to give everything. Everything. That means our swords. We must be available for the fight. This is what it means to be Catholic.